Meeting of the Board of County Commissioners on Monday, August 10th, 2020 at 6 o'clock. As always, we'll start with invocation. If you would, please stand and join me. Most gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for the day that you've given us, Lord. Lord, right now we just ask you to give peace to the Mendenhall family, Lord, after their loss. Be with his mom, Lord, as she goes through her injuries, and just speak a healing into her. Lord, right now we just ask you to be with us as we conduct this meeting. We ask you to lead, guide, and direct us in everything to be pleaseful to you, Lord. Lord, just ask for forgiveness for your failure. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please continue standing for our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before our approval of the agenda, I ask to please add the interlocal agreement for the disbursement of coronavirus funds to the discussion agenda under item D, COVID-19 funding information.
Motion to approve with that addition.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. I'll move on to our comments from our commissioners and managers, starting with Commissioner Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome everybody that's here. We have a small crowd tonight, but hopefully we have a few on the monitor up there. I'm going to keep doing my office hours on the second Tuesday by telephone, so if anybody wants to call at 4 to 7 on the second Tuesday, I'll make sure I'm free and can answer at that time until King Roy eases up on us a little bit. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Walker.
I'm free and can...
King Roy, that's the first time I've heard that. I've heard a lot of other names, but not that particular one. You're innovative, Commissioner Morris. I just continue to be concerned about the peripheral damage being done by the, whatever label you want to attach to them, the precautions regarding the virus. Most of the people I'm talking with, I'd say 75–80% or so, I haven't done a scientific study, but just off the top of the mind, it seems to be about in that range, feel like they're over-restrictive and harmful. And addressing the harmful side just a little bit, I think there's been 3 deaths in Stokes County from the virus. And even all these numbers have an element of suspicious about question about them. Having trouble talking. Sorry. Still have allergies. For example, I heard that if someone dies with COVID virus, that's listed as a death because of the virus. It should be dies from the effect of the virus instead of somebody dying with the virus. Plus, talk to enough people and you're going to start hearing things about a lot of the deaths, at least some of the deaths are from other causes, but they end up being listed as a virus death. I'm hearing that more often now. Hearing strange things too, like the test. People not even taking a test had to leave the line they were waiting in and come back positive. So there's a lot of things going on both sides. From the extreme of some people think our government is such what do you call him, Mr. Commissioner? King Roy, and others are not even doing enough with all this going on. Others think it's way too much to the point of almost being a joke. It's a farce, a sham. So you got that wide extreme of views. But anyhow, what I wanted to mention about known collateral damage is there's been about 3 deaths, the last count I saw in Stokes County from the virus. And I don't know whether that was because of the virus or with the virus. Probably will never know. But anyhow, there were 3 suicides in 1 week in our community. 3. And there's been several others besides those. That's not normal. That is way beyond normal. So the effect it's having on people is beginning to show itself in various ways. Drug use is going out the roof. Emotional issues, mental issues, escalating, zooming upwards. All because people are running out of patience. They've had a good part of their life taken away. some people are still afraid to come out of their house. So we've got a lot of ways to look at this. But anyway, hopefully the end is in sight at least. I don't know what to expect anymore. When I'm reading the paper and see the word COVID, I lay it down, go on to something else. And it's just going to be interesting to see how closure, if it ever comes, will come to this situation we're in now. But on the good side, Mr. Chairman, happy that there's as much things to be thankful as we have. We always, I think, do not give enough attention to the many blessings we have, even in these extreme times. Families, friends, things that really matter in life. But I think the county, hopefully, can step up to the plate more. We have some money to work with, $1 million or so plus dollars, COVID dollars. I think we need to find some ways to apply that to actually helping people who are in extreme situations caused by the precautions for the virus. I'll stop there, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you,
I
sir.
can tell Commissioner Langford has a bunch he wants to say.
Not really. I'm just thankful for being here tonight and appreciate everyone that's come out to contribute. And I know it's trying times, and we do. I try my very, very best to share my concerns and problems to the Lord and thank Him for all He's doing for us in this earth and all He has in store for us. But that's I'm really concerned about a lot of these problems we're having, even though I know it's in His will. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Wow, those words you just said right there, that's true. Our Lord and Savior's all in control. So
Absolutely.
No worries.
Totally.
I'll just pass it on to our manager.
I don't have anything, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, sir. Now we have a public hearing. Notice of the public hearing was advertised in the Stokes News on July 30th, 2020, and on the county website. The hearing is being conducted concerning the approval of the execution and delivery of the contract and financing of the county's construction of the EMS station in Walnut Cove and the public works maintenance. I'll now open the floor to any public hearing, and if no one signed up, if anyone in attendance would like to speak on it. You, sir, do you want to speak? Okay. Thank you. All right, I'll now close the floor for the public hearing. We have no public comments. I'll now ask for approval of the consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Second.
Commissioner Langford, got a second? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Now move on to our discussion agenda. Item A, the Tax Administration Monthly Report. Mr. Richard Brown.
Good evening.
Evening.
Like always, I got the tax office monthly collection report. It's started off real good, even though you look at the numbers and it doesn't look that good, but it's really started off really well because we sent the bills out on Thursday, July the 30th, and we went to our new platform for our electronic collection site. And from July the 30th, which was Thursday, until today at 5 o'clock, we've already collected over $303,000 on that site. $210,500 of that amount has come from e-checks. That's the new, what's one of the main reasons we went to the new platform that the board approved. And in approving that, it's been well received from the taxpayers, and they're definitely utilizing it. So that's going really good. Next item I've got is standard real and personal property releases less than $100. We have 10 accounts that total $326.72. Then we have real and personal refunds less than $100. We have one account that totals $51.57. Then we have real and personal releases more than $100. We have 3 accounts that total $6,478. And then the last item under refunds and releases is real and personal refunds more than $100. We have 3 totaling $1,045.13. The next item I've got is one that means a lot to me. It's my reappointment request. It's hard to believe it's been 2 years that I've been in this position, and first appointment can only be 2 years, initial appointment. You've got to satisfy your course requirements and pass an examination. I have done that and completed that, and I would have took the exam in March, but due to the COVID, the Department of Revenue wouldn't allow me to come to Raleigh. So my appointment runs out on August the 12th, and I was concerned, and the Department of Revenue reached out to me and told me I could come to Wilkes County, and they had a field agent up there where I could take the exam. And I did that on July 27th, and I successfully completed and passed that course. So I'm asking the board if they will appoint me to a 4-year appointment based on North Carolina General Statute 105-294, and I am requesting that be moved to action tonight because my appointment runs out on the 12th of this month. And, you know, like I said, I didn't drag my feet on it. It was just the effects of the COVID. Okay, the next item I've got is, you'll see the red book up there, and that's the 2021 Schedule of Values. That's the standard and rules that the county is going to use to appraise real property at its true value and its present use value. I give it to the board tonight to review and look at. Also, there's a copy in the tax office for the public to look at. And then on the 24th of August, there will be a public hearing that's during the regular Board of Commissioners meeting for any public comments. And then after that, we have the final approval on the September 14th regular Board of Commissioners meeting. The next item I've got is the minimal taxes. Commissioner Walker, last meeting, he asked me to do a little research and find out about minimal taxes and minimal refunds. I did that. I reached out to all 100 counties in North Carolina and got 31 responses. And from those 31 responses, the median minimum tax bill was $3. I also looked at the cost associated with mailing and processing a bill, what it cost the county of Stokes, and it's roughly around $3. The 2020 tax scrolls show we had 359 bills that fell between $1.01 and $3 with a tax levy of $741.89. If you look at a range from $3.01 to $5, it was 950 bills that totaled $3,729.99. Based on these findings, it's the recommendation of the tax office that you allow us to prepare a resolution to change the minimum tax bill from $1 to $3 effective for tax year 2021. So if the board approve this on the consent agenda next time, we'll work on getting a resolution to get that done effective for 2021. And then similarly, minimal refunds, I think that's what got this started. We looked at it, and minimal refunds, we can, $15 or less, we don't have to do a refund. We can apply it as an overpayment to their next year's bill, and we don't have to cut a check, and unless they request one, and if they do, then we'll get them a check. But talk to finance. That'll help finance, and that'll help reconcile and keep the records a little better and make it easier on everybody. So if the board chooses to do that, I'll also get a resolution fixed up and have the board approve it at a meeting in the near future. And then the next item I have two late elderly exemption applications. Then I have one late disabled veterans exclusion application. Then the final thing I have is two late present use value applications. That's all I've got.
All right. I'll start off by just saying I'm sure we won't have a problem with giving you a signature right there for 4 years. I'll let the rest of the board talk on that too, but I know my mind will be made up on that. Y'all mind if I go? Okay. Richard, on the minimum taxes, the cars are not involved in that?
Cars are not involved because that's done by the state. Yes, the cars are
Okay.
involved in that.
And What is the land use values per acre?
That's going to, in the new schedule?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to, if you look in that book right there on page, I think it's chapter 4, probably, again, maybe. They're in there.
Fourth tab there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or something. Let's see. I think it's maybe page 8, maybe. Maybe it's 9 or 10. Let's see. Right there. it is.
Okay.
11.
Okay.
411 is the page.
That's the same as it was.
No, it's went up a little bit, but not very much. The state sends us advisory bulletin every year, and we adjust accordingly. And we have made a few slight differences based on some of the stuff that we've seen in crop rents and things, but basically it's what they give us.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Commissioner Walker?
Thank you, Richard. I appreciate the research you put into the minimum tax question.
You're welcome.
Sounds like you did a thorough job with that. Can't do much better than reach out to all 100 counties.
Put it in there, but it didn't take it.
So, your recommendation, and I think it's a very valid one, is for $3. Yeah, I mean, it's only, what, $700?
Yes,
That
700.
would be, and that's all said by the amount of postage and your staff's time and whatever else is involved.
Absolutely.
So, I'm glad we're taking a serious look at that.
Thank you.
Starting from the beginning, or close to the beginning, the the red book you gave us for the property values, property schedule, I think that would be about the same as for previous years.
It is.
Is there any changes at all that we should?
Just some standard base rate changes, and changed the language on a few things, added riverfront foot. We're probably going to do some river pricing based on front
Right.
foot, things like that. But basically, it's the same, just a few tweaks here and there.
What is the base now for our county?
For
But- Base per acre value?
Well, it depends on the market area you're in. If you're in the northeast area of the county, you're probably looking at a starting base rate of about 9,000. And if you work down to the southwest corner in King, you get base rates of over 40,000 per acre on residential, and in commercials, can be a lot more than that in the right corridors.
Right. But a general average for the county may be around 10, 12, something like that?
Probably closer to 13 or 14 to start
Right.
with. It's factored down for size, road access, things like
Sure.
that.
I know that in years past, there was an amount we started with and then took away for access and terrain and several different
Same
factors.
thing. It's the same approach.
The other thing, and I'll stop, is you mentioned that you're pretty satisfied with our new system.
Knock on wood.
Now, you mentioned that a lot of it was by e-check,
Yes,
and I don't think we're charging for that, are we?
we are not.
And you got a couple 100,000 already.
210,400.
By e-check. Very good. Well, I'm glad that's working, and it should help smooth things out some for your department's operation. It's always a good step.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm definitely good with your reappointment tonight, doing it tonight, and also with the minimum tax thing, so sounds good to me.
Commissioner Lane?
That's all I have.
Richard, real property of more than $100, is it going to be an age limit? I mean, does seniors get credit for, I mean, they going to get some consideration for their tax when you evaluate the home?
Well, we'll value the home what it's worth. You know, we won't look at anybody's age or anything. We'll put the value on it, but then they can apply for the elderly exclusion or exemption, and if they meet those qualifications, then we'll cut the value of their property in half for the first acre and the home, or 25,000, whichever is greater. But there is income restrictions, and a lot of times people won't meet those income restrictions because they're so low. You know, Jake and I talked about that for years, wish they would kind of either raise that bar a lot or maybe just do away with the income limit altogether. But, you know, we're set and bound by that by the state. The state sets all that.
Okay. Well, I didn't know, at one time we did have it here, that we looked at the age group and give them some consideration to their tax bill, or tax appraisal.
And you still do. You still do.
Huh?
Still do.
We still doing it?
Yes.
Okay, that's good.
Okay. And Richard, are you and your staff prepared for the large increase in the county citizen appeals based on previous revals?
You know,
How many board are dates?
Well, I think we're probably going to need, you know, well, this year I think we just had one, didn't we?
Sometimes you have two,
We
but you only
sometimes
had
two,
one this
but-
time.
Maybe next time, maybe 4, but, you know, I really don't, shouldn't jinx us, but I really don't see that happening because, you know, people are aware. I mean, with the internet now, and they can go out here for themselves and see what stuff's selling for. And then, you know, we're real open. You know, if we got something wrong, we'll fix it. And we can prove, if our data's right, we can prove that our value's right. And then a lot of times if you just let those folks give their side and then you come back and explain to them why you did what you did, a lot of times, you know, it kind of straightens itself out. Because if we bring something to this board, we feel confident that we're right. We're not going to bring anything up here and waste your time that we're wrong on.
Good deal. And these dates are set when?
They'll be set. You can set them whenever you like. I mean, they have to be no earlier than the first Monday in April, and they have to be before the first Monday in May.
We'll probably set about 4.
Yeah, I think it'd probably be a good
Yes,
start.
maybe down here.
Hope we don't have to use them, but we'll have them.
Sounds good.
Is the board good with putting Richard Brim's reappointment on the action agenda tonight?
Really consider it, absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you, sir. Put that on there as item B, is that correct? Okay. All right, we move on to item B, discussion agenda, the COVID-19 update. Our health director, Ms. Tammy Martin.
Good evening.
How you doing, Tammy?
Good. So far, we've had 2 mass testings in the county. 76 people showed up at West Stokes, and 80 showed up at the one at the health department. That was 156 total. We had 1 positive out of those tested. Our testing is picked up at the health department. We see about 8 to 10 a day now. We've blocked from 1 to 3 in the afternoons just for testing. We used to just do if you've been a close contact or if you had symptoms, but now we're having to do, for students going back to college, they need proof that they're negative. So we're doing that in addition. We are, and Shannon and Mari, I had to get it approved, getting the 15-minute rapid test in. Should be by the end of the month. So it's just like your flu or strep. You can come in, get a swab, in 15 minutes you'll know if you're positive or negative. Right now, we have 4 teams of 2 people working every weekend. We rotate it out, doing the cases that come in on the weekend, because we have to do the contact tracing on the weekends also. So that is 7 of my nurses and myself are on those teams. And we do that and log it in because it has to be with 24 hours, they have to be notified. And we have met with, I've met with Dr. Rice and Dr. Taylor about schools opening and what they should do, how they should contact us if they have cases. The school nurses came last Thursday and went over training with our nurses, and they were asking questions. So I made them up a little FAQ sheet and sent it to Karen Beam today. So if they had any issues with that. We now, in addition to our regular triage, have a COVID triage line, and we're getting 50 to 100 calls a day on that regarding just questions, testing, anything COVID related. And since March, we've had the jail outbreak, which I know you're aware of, 13 inmates, 2 employees were positive at that time. They will be on the site as a congregate living outbreak until 28 days. So September 1st will be when they come off, unless they have another positive, then it'll go 28 days from that next case. The state just makes them stay on 28 days. We had one at Walnut Ridge back in the beginning. Nobody else that I know of we've had, well, Village Care had 2 in the very, very beginning, but that's all recently. And as of today, we've had 296 total cases. 17 are in isolation, 1's in the hospital still, and 275 recovered, and 3 deaths for our county. Can't think of anything else. I don't, if there's any questions you can ask, I'm sure there's something else, but.
I'm just curious, what's the, how accurate that 15-minute test? If they had any false positives come back from it, or?
They send a confirmatory off to LabCorp also with that one to make sure.
Okay.
So their matching up is 90%. I have all the paperwork if you want me to forward it to you from the company.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Moses.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Hey, Tammy, thanks for the update. I got a few questions. I want a little bit about the school system, but before that, a couple of general questions. Does the contact tracing work the same way now as it did when you first started this? And you have to do exactly the same procedures?
Yeah, we're calling, they call the individual, get all their contacts within 2 days before they had symptoms that were close contacts for more than 15 minutes. And then they'll call their employees also and notify their employer.
Okay, how many people did you say are working on that? How many does it take to do that?
Right now, every nurse will do contact tracing when we have a big day.
Okay,
Now, on the weekends, we're alternating. There's 2 of us working on Saturday, Sundays.
okay. Does the state say you have to
Within
contact the
24 hours.
person once they get it within a certain amount of time to
Yeah,
start
24
doing that?
hours.
24 hours? Okay. So if somebody, if you just find out about a case, or if you're testing somebody and you'd know right then, but if somebody like calls in and does somebody call and tell you that they've got it, or?
Navant usually faxes it in early in the morning. LabCorp, that's where that is. In our state lab, we can go in the system and pull it up. And then we have to enter it in NCS and it goes to the state.
Okay, and that's when it starts the clock, and then within 24 hours you've
Right.
got
We
to,
normally call them in the mornings, we get the paperwork, and on some, when they're faxed in, it's other counties. So they break it down and get all of ours, and we call them that day, because the next day there may be twice as many, so we have to get it, so we won't get back.
you just call the actual person that's sick?
Yes.
Is that what you do? Okay. Whenever, if one of the students or somebody in the school system calls in, or you find out that they've got it, do you have to notify the school system too? Or do you notify the school system to let them
They're
know?
going to notify us of the ones that get sent home.
Mhm.
And I've talked to them about doing a daily email maybe to us from each school, the ones that got sent home. That way we can watch, because we know they're going to either go get tested or be quarantined for 10 days. If
Okay.
they don't, so it'll feed in when the results come back automatically to us.
So if they get sent home from school, they don't know if they have it for sure, they just know they got fever or something. And so then you've got to get a test,
Right.
and until you get that test, you don't do contact tracing, do
We
you?
won't do contact tracing until we know they're positive.
Okay,
They'll just have to monitor for symptoms until we get that positive. And right now, it's like 3 to 5 days. It had been pushed out to 10, but it's cut back down.
okay. What did you say, you mentioned the school nurses, do they have a special set of requirements or something that you've added to their job to
No,
do?
they just came in and wanted to make sure they were doing everything correctly with PPE and everything, and they were, we gave them some guidelines like that would make it easier for us if we have to contact trace a positive. Like in class, the teachers will need to start marking if they have a mask on or if they don't, because that factors in that 15 minutes if, and then they're gonna have to screen them every day when they get to school, so we're gonna need to know which ones, didn't have symptoms and which ones did. That would make it easier on us to watch the system for this person if they've been tested.
Is that are those requirements ones you guys came up with, or the state says that all school nurses have to, or are
Those
supposed to do
ones
certain things?
that we came up to make it easier, because I think it's going to kind of get messy in the beginning if you don't have a plan.
Okay. Okay. Let me see, just a couple other questions I had. Have you had any school staff or students test positive? I'm sure you have, probably, out of that group.
Not that I know of.
Not that you know of, nobody that's still up
No,
there.
because they just went back today. I believe the teachers just went back into schools today.
Like of those 200 or 300, none of them are students or teachers or staff, as far as you know.
I'm sure there's some students, because in that age range I've looked at, but I hadn't verified.
Okay, okay. The reason I'm asking the questions is that getting schools, you know, they got a real challenge to get the schools back open, doing A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and all in between. I'm not sure how they're going to do all that, but it seems to me that the one thing that could really throw a wrench into their ABC system is something not happen that's supposed to with the virus. So I don't know if you guys, if you guys, you're comfortable that you guys know what you need to do, they know what to do, you're got a communication system that.
And Dr. Rice will call me if he has a question, and Dr. Taylor does too.
Oh, okay, okay. Because if they, what do they do, like once they're all back to going on their system and they get like 5 or 10 cases or something, is that, what happens then? Do
The
you
state
guys?
hasn't gave us a number of when to shut it down as an outbreak yet, so we're waiting for that little cutoff when we should shut down, because in the congregate settings, it's 5 or over as an outbreak or a cluster outbreak. And I don't know the number of students that are actually going back yet either. So it would depend on that number, how many would be considered an outbreak.
So when you say, is it automatic that if you have a certain number, you have to shut something down?
They haven't told us.
Do what?
The state hasn't told us yet what that number.
I just wondered if
They say
it'd
there's
be,
going to be a number coming out, but they hadn't gave us a number of shutdown,
would it be an individual school or would it be the whole system?
the school.
Do you know?
It would be the school.
Just that school where it's occurred at, right? So,
We did have an employee, last week. And because that's when Dr. Rice did call, and we had to help him with what to do with that.
okay. Okay, good. So you don't have any concerns really that you guys are ready to make sure that we don't have a big hiccup in the school system once they get open? You feel pretty comfortable?
I think there's going to be a hiccup anyway. I think there's going to be outbreaks just because those kids haven't been back in those classrooms and they're all going to get back in there together. I don't think there's any way to avoid having it, because other states are starting to see it as they start back. I just don't know how big it's going to get.
Okay. All right, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Walker?
Thank you, sir. Tammy, appreciate you being here.
Okay.
And appreciate all you're doing, you and your staff, to help get us through this very unusual situation. I'm 76 years old. I've never seen anything anywhere near like this. Nowhere near like what we're experiencing now. Good news to me is we're very fortunate. Out of 46,000 people, what do we have, 20-some that are active now?
17.
17 active cases out of 46,000 people. That's a thank you, Lord, to me, because, you know, I've been tracking that number, but a lot of the COVID numbers I'm really not that interested in, but that one I've been watching. And it's varied from 8 or 9 to low 20s, if my memory's right. So out of 46,000 people, we're very, very fortunate. And I wish the newspapers, hoping Neil reads this or listens to it, he'll pay a little attention to this. I wish they'd report more of the good news. Like, we're very blessed here in Stokes County that we have such small numbers, have had them all along. When you're testing for virus, are you tested for antibodies?
No, that's a separate test. That's a blood test.
Right.
You can have it ordered by your doctor, or you donate blood now, they'll test for it through the Red Cross.
Okay. It's good to know. Going down the list, I don't think mine's as long as Commissioner Morris's is, but, do you know of anything the county can do that currently is not being done that would make this situation we're trying to get through better in any way?
Not right now. I mean, I've called them. If I need stuff, then they'll get it, or get it to Ty to approve the, contract so we can get it, like with the testing. And I'm
Right.
hoping that'll help when schools open the 15-minute rapid
How many
test.
of those are we getting?
The first shipment's 300.
Is there a pretty good supply available?
He said it would be 4 weeks, and we're going into week 2 right now. And I know Novant, Mountain View, the extended hour, they have it. They're the ones that have it in this county other than we will.
Well, that's good news that there is a 15-minute test. If someone, and if you think of anything that the county can do that's currently not being done, I'd be very interested in knowing about it. We do have some funds to work with. I know sounds like a lot to start with, but we'll probably end up only being able to stretch them so far. But I think we could always put a priority on whatever we fund. Tell me, please, if you will, what happens when there's a positive in a family? You talk about contacts and they're followed up on, and so what happens if Dad tests positive and he's got 3 kids and a wife, and what happens to the rest of the family?
Normally we call and he'll tell us, who he's been around. All the family members normally go get tested, and the past 2 weeks we've been seeing a lot of households that are testing positive. It'll be 2 out of each household, or maybe 3. So they're spreading it within the household. So if one gets it, more than likely everybody in that house is going to get it.
I know of a few instances where it worked the opposite of that. One got it and nobody else in the house got it, other adults, other children.
Yeah.
And I guess it can kind of vary from situation to situation.
Yeah, because I did it last week, and it was 17 separate individuals that were part of a spouse or a family.
Right. Is there any way, I've been curious about this, this is not essential information by any means, more of a curiosity type question, but is there any way to know of all the people who have had, who've tested positive for the virus, how many were mask wearers?
No, we don't ask.
So there's no way to
No, we haven't
access
asked.
that particular information.
No.
So I hear things, there's so much information coming at us from various sources. A lot of it contradicts other information. I've heard that masks are ineffective. That really, for the person wearing them, it may protect others besides them, but for the person wearing them, they're not effective.
It just helps reduce the spread. It slows it. There's nothing 100% effective, so it just helps reduce the spread.
You've hit on something that's been a concern for me, and that is when people get as tired as they seem to be getting of all these restrictions and hoops to go through and hurdles to jump over, and they're interacting with each other more. There's going to be, I think you called it a hiccup, and I've been calling it a spike, because it's almost certain to go up by probably a pretty good bit.
Yeah, because we saw a spike right there about in July, I think, when people actually started going on vacations. They would come back with symptoms. And then it's leveled off a little bit now, so I figure when school starts, there's going to be another spike. And then when flu season comes, there's going to be another one.
Sounds like we're kind of in this for the long haul.
Looks like it.
Forsyth County published something in the paper one time, a demographic breakout of age age and various demographic information. Do we have any information such as what part of our county is most effective?
Now, I update our Facebook daily, and I did today just put the breakdown of age and gender, but the state's website, you can actually go on NCDHHS and pull up by zip code.
Right.
And you just put in Stokes County, and it'll pull up the same thing, the deaths, the race, the genders, and everything. But if you go in there, you can type in a zip code, and it'll tell you how many in that zip code. The only thing you have to be careful about is the ones that share with Surrey or Rockingham. It pulls that whole zip. It doesn't split it by county. So if you
Simply
pull
by
up
zip code.
one, like I think Surrey, there's the Mount Airy 27030 shared with Stokes and Surrey, it's going to give you both counties.
Right.
They haven't broke it down.
But you have to go on to do that search. Sounds like a person would have to go on and do it by individual zip codes. There's not a,
Well, it pulls up the actual map, and you can keep zooming in. I don't like the way it's done, but you can keep zooming into the county and see it without typing in the zip codes. But you have to just keep zooming.
okay. Well, that's all I have, and again, appreciate your effort that you're giving toward this as well as that of your staff, and I know it's not easy, is it?
No, not really, not anymore.
Commissioner Langford, do you have anything?
I'm good.
And Tim, are they doing anything about, is the state doing anything about adding nurses or something to the school, especially with more population to help out with this, or?
Not that I know of. I know they probably need more help, but I don't know if the state's, what amount they're giving them extra money. I know Dr. Rice said that he had, I think, 30-some thousand to play with if we had any nurses, but I don't have enough nurses as it is because there's 4, I want to say, school nurses, and they have to rotate school, so they're never at the same school. They're only there 1 day a week.
Interesting.
So the other staff's going to have to be trained to, screen.
And a quick question to see if you have any knowledge is, I was speaking to a friend of mine today, he's actually battling COVID right now. I said he's type A blood type, said it's the COVID affects type A blood type worse than anything else. Is that true?
I don't really know. I've seen everything out there, but I don't know how true it is.
Okay. I was curious if you'd heard anything on that.
No.
That's all we got.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Moore.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item C, the Board of Health application.
I'll do that one.
Okay.
I got a request from the Board of Health for an appointment to their board. They've had a vacant dental position for quite a while, and they want to fill that with Tori Phipps, who's applied for that position. She works in Dr. May's office and would like to be the representative for the dental representative for Stokes County on the Board of Health.
Excuse me, please. Shannon, I didn't hear whose office she works in.
The May, but dentist
Okay,
office in
Walnut
Walnut
Cove.
Cove.
Yeah, gotcha. So she actually works in a dental office?
Yes, yes, and there's not been a dental representative on that board in quite a while, so she's applied to fill that position.
Good.
And I got this from the Board of Health, from Keith Lawson.
So it's vacant, it doesn't have somebody else filling for her, okay.
More questions, comments? I assume
Just
they
needs
need
you
that.
to, just needs you to open the floor for nominations and then
Okay.
we'll.
I'll open the floor for nominations.
Nominate Tori Phipps.
Anybody want to make a motion to close?
Move that we close the nominations.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'll now poll the board, starting with Commissioner Morris.
Well, you don't have
No.
We ain't got to do anything.
No, we'll just put it on action for the next meeting and I'll advertise it and then next time you'll vote on it and poll. Yeah,
Okay.
so we're good now. As long as I have a consensus to move it to action for next meeting.
I was just going to speed it up some.
You're really, I know, you're going through.
All right, move on to item D, the COVID-19 funding information. Mr. Oakley.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, this is something that we're going to go through and fill the board in on what's come in and how it's come in and what needs to be laid out and done as far as the best of our ability on how this CARES Act monies is going to be distributed out to our citizens and to our municipality. But as you can see here in the CARES Act funding received, if you pull up the memos of the that is attached on the CFF plan information, you will see that the Stokes County has got 2 rounds of COVID funding. One was $991,781. The other one was $884,827.68, which gave you a total of $1,876,608.68. Out of this funding, the state and the laws on this says that the municipalities are to receive 25% of this total amount. Since everything was based on population throughout the state and counties, and that's the way Shannon and I looked at everything that was done here. And again, Shannon has done a lot of work on this and getting this laid out and prepared for you. So if you hear that I look over something, please speak up, Shannon, because this is a lot for you to take into consideration right now and a lot for us to move forward on.
One thing I will mention while you're talking about that is 25% is the minimum amount of funding that you have to do, but you can do more. It's not there's no limit to that. You can do more if you wish. So that's one thing.
But as you see this municipality allotment that's allotted out to our 3 towns and cities, you can see that I broke it down per population, the amount of dollars per citizen. And then you will come in, you'll see the town of Danbury receiving a total amount of $11,000 some dollars based on 186 population. You got the city of King, which has a area of judicial boundaries inside the county of Forsyth. Forsyth is listing 691 citizens in that area for their city limits, so that would, with our total population based on our census tract, 6,861, as you can see there, which brings it down to 6,170 that Stokes County is going to place on the population, giving you $375,540.72. This is within a couple of $100 that the city of King is doing themselves, but I'm sure that all of this can be worked out. With Walnut Cove, you see Walnut Cove's population of 1,355, which gives them 82,472.88, which is a total of 25% of the total amount stated above of $469,152. Shannon has went through and gave you a lot of the requirements based on the reporting and what the state budget and management information is and the responsibilities of doing this. Whatever we give to the municipalities, they need to do a monthly reporting for the next several months of what they are spending it on. We would do the same. We will request that amount be sent to, that information be sent to us so we can keep a track of it also in case the state requires from us a listing of the amount that's went there. But you can see that the municipalities will be held liable for their portion and not in as far as what Stokes County being held liable for.
When the first round of funding came out, there was no requirement to share with municipalities, even though we were still going to present something to do so. And at that time, it stated that the county will be liable and solely responsible for how that money was spent. And in the meantime, they changed all that, did the second round of funding, did the 25% requirement, and changed the fact that the municipalities are required to be liable and spend the money accordingly how they're supposed to by the plan. I think a lot of local governments were afraid to start doling that money out until they knew they weren't going to be liable for how another board chose to spend it. So that way there's a little more, and then Ty worked out that interlocal agreement that I passed out before and I emailed out today. He just finished that up today. That kind of goes along with this part as far as just making sure everything's laid out where everybody understands what's happening.
Which is an agreement that this board needs to place on the action agenda. Can all this stuff go through the proper channel like we've always done with everything?
Yeah, we can, once everybody we can talk about numbers and make sure everybody's good with what we've got laid out.
Okay. So with that said, with their amount that our municipalities get, Mr. Chairman, board members, now Stokes County is at $1,407,456.51 of the amount that they can distribute out to the citizens of Stokes County through essential.
You can do small business grants for those that qualify. You can do nonprofit grants for those that qualify that have had losses that they can prove due to COVID-19. And there are some sample applications and guidelines that I've put into the agenda just to look over and get input from you all on if that's something you'd like to do.
But under this grant stuff, when we get to it, we'll go over it in more detail. There's areas of, that we need for this board to look at on amount of monies that we're going to be placing into the grant funding for our businesses and nonprofits. And then also, Mr. Chairman and board members, I have a request that I would love for to have established, and that is during this process, we go ahead and set up an advisory grant review committee to assist the commissioners in reviewing all these grants and applications that may come in on funding. You can see the list of names I've got here. I've heard the board before saying fewer members is better than a lot. So if you see something that you would like to change or add to it, please bring it out. But I do want one commissioner serving on this board, advisory board, so they can review, look at, make the recommendations. But everything that is approved in all of this COVID money will be finalized at this level. The commissioners will say yes or no on everything. Excuse me. So with that said, do you want to go into the local agreement we have, or do you want to go stick with the grant?
The municipality part, one more thing I want to, about the 25%. If, like I said, you can do more, you can do 25%. I know that when we met the first time with some of the town managers and we sat down, at that time, the town of Danbury said they really did not want to request funding because they had not really had an impact to get that kind of money to try to figure out what they could do with it, because there's a lot of stipulations on how you can spend the money. We, of course, would still offer that to them, and if they did not want to receive their portion of the funding, they could decline it, certainly, and if another municipality needed that amount of funding, it could go there, or it can go back into the main fund and be used for other expenses. So they don't have to take it if they've not incurred that many costs and don't foresee using it.
So you've y'all dispersed it already. You already dispersed that 25%. Just say 2 months down the road, the county's not really using up all what it needs, but King needs a little bit more.
Right.
You can always
Okay. Revisit it, and yeah, because we definitely want to try to. They're not giving you much time to work with, and we just received the second funding last Tuesday. The check came in, so they're only giving you through December 30th to get all this finished and spent, and it has to be completely spent or it goes back.
It is a very large push of making sure things are done. Very difficult to make sure it's done in a proper manner. It's a very short period. I'm hoping they will come in and say we're going to extend this period from December to into next year.
I hope so.
Especially, if they're looking at another stimulus package from Washington, and they're looking at another large sums of monies being distributed out to our states and counties, that I would probably see another one that would be more of CARES Act funds that would come to the county. So I would think it would most likely be extended, and I really hope so. That way it allows us to sit back, take a breath, and really think through a lot of decisions that needs to be made on a lot of different nonprofit or organizations that really have lost a lot of funds due to not being able to raise money or seek funding that whatever ways they go through it. But we hope that the last thing we do is not send any of these funds back to the state, that we are getting it out to our people, and so they can utilize these monies. So, Shannon, with that said, do you want to move to another?
Well, before because I know this is a lot of information and it's a lot of things that I need input on. So maybe we can just stop there for a second and let you all talk about kind of what you see and what you're feeling about dollar amounts, things like that, for a possible amount to put into a fund for grants for small businesses and nonprofits. and also what you're feeling about the municipalities as far as if you think 25% is sufficient or if you want to go more than that. Those would be some things that would be good to have input on.
I think starting off at 25%. I think starting on, then we get till December, and we're already in August. That still gives a little bit of time to see where we're sitting at, so you can always disperse it later.
Right.
Anybody?
Ready for
Start with
Jimmy to
Commissioner
go
Moore,
first,
sir.
who wants to?
Doesn't matter.
I'll ask a few questions, then I'll probably have some more, but I'm fine with the 25% to start with, and we could adjust that later. Are you gonna send the interlocal agreement to the municipality, see if they're agreeable to sign
Yeah,
it?
yeah, I wanted you
Haven't
all
had time
to,
yet, right, to do that?
right, and so I wanted you all to try to take a look at it, and then we could maybe approve it at our next meeting as far as the agreement, but I wanted to go ahead and get it out today so you could take a look at it. Ty just finished working on the wording from it, but yeah, I will definitely send them all a copy once we're finished with it at this meeting tonight, and
Okay.
see if they have any ideas or changes or anything.
Do you have any idea what, this money, as I understand it, is federal money to the state and then the state to us? What, and then us to some people, businesses or nonprofits? My experience with all grant money I've ever dealt with before is that's going to get tracked all the way to the bottom and all the way back to the top. So I was curious, kind of, is there going to be any, or who's going to do the grant administration for a whole bunch of these things? Y'all got somebody figured out to do that?
Well, for right now, and unless we want to, you can use the COVID-19, the CARES Act money to hire a person to manage some of those things if you want. We just weren't sure what kind of response we were going to get from this. I hope that lots of people take advantage of it and we get it out there. We were trying to plan to do it in-house here and have a group set up to look at it, look at the applications as they come in, and bring those back to you all for final approval as far as the number of grants and the amounts and kind of just getting what they
Then
are.
that leads to my question I had written down here is that, will there be reporting requirements for the people who receive the money on how they spent it?
Well, not through the state. So this is all, they're making up these things so quickly as they bring it out, and I've made a very good friend at the Office of State Budget Management. I talk to you on a daily basis, and they just are trying to get the money out and get it finished. So basically, I have to send a report to them monthly now, and I just sent the first one in August, actually in July, which didn't include a lot because we hadn't spent a lot of the money yet. So each month we send a report in of what we've done with it. At this time, all we do is report that we have given out a subaward or a grant to this municipality or to this individual business as we do those. How the businesses are required to report, or the nonprofits, has not been determined by them. So that'll be something
Well,
through their taxes.
I've never seen a grant where you could give them the money and not
Right.
have feedback on how they spent it.
Right.
But this could be different with the nature of what the beast is here. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I'll be prepared for that. And also, Jake wants to get an extension, but as it stands now, you got to have a plan that wraps this whole thing up by December, so you ain't got much time.
We're just hoping that the state will do that as far as, because all the local governments are having trouble trying to get all this laid out and get it, you got all these guidelines to go make sure you're doing it correctly and what they're saying to do, and it's tough to do that in that amount of time.
I'd really try to figure out if the recipients are going to have to report back, because
Yeah.
you could get in the issue of giving them 50,000 and they only spend 25 by December. Well, they have to give 25 back.
Right.
That could all get really complicated.
Yeah, very much so.
Julie, have the auditors given us any guidance on how to do any of this or what they're going to look at when they come in?
They haven't given anything yet.
Might be good to call them, ask them what they're going to be looking for. This is complicated stuff here. I ain't ever done any grant this complicated. You're getting all this money and flying it around everywhere with no rules is kind of what it looks to me
Yeah, that's
like.
kind of what they.
That's dangerous.
It's like that everywhere. Every county.
Because they'll make up the rules after the fact and stick you with them. I can tell you that's how they do this stuff.
I don't know of anything that the recipient receives of them filling out a form saying, this is how I spent it. I don't know of anything that they've got
having.
guidelines set up for that. Now, they do have guidelines that they have to submit to us on why they are are requesting these funds.
No, they don't. Those are just me. I mean, I created the form that's in here as far as like asking for proof of the loss, proof of all that. They haven't given anything on guidance on how they could tell you.
They don't have guidance on this right here.
No, and I've got emails piled everywhere in there where I'm
There's
asking
got to be some way
questions.
you can make them show you what they did with it. Otherwise, you give them the money and they could go on a vacation with it or something, you know?
She's done as you can see here, she has done a form in here that they have to fill out saying,
Says what they're going to do.
yeah, here's your cash receipts and that you fill out on sales tax or whatever. This is what you've done in 18. She's wanting to see 18. And then she says, okay, I want to see what your 19 has done so far.
But on grants and stuff, I mean, you got to trust but verify. I mean, all the ones I've ever done before. You know?
Well, I completely understand. They're just not giving any kind of guidance on that. So unless we are the ones that take over you have to report it to us on how you spend it and prove it. Otherwise, but you are allowed to give them the money and they can use it. We can't use it to supplant our budget at all. We can only use it for, like providing PPE things in our buildings, putting up plexiglass for protection. We can do certain things with payroll if it's COVID related. But the small business portion, it does say where they are able to spend that money on things like lost revenues because they were forced to close or work at half capacity. So those are things they could replace their revenue from their last calendar year, or say a nonprofit had a huge fundraiser they normally have and they're not going to have it now. If they can prove what they made on that fundraiser last year, you can provide a grant and that amount to them to replace that money.
Another question I had was, I'm trying to think of all the things you need to do to not get in trouble.
Yeah, we've been doing that too.
And like another one is if you start taking in people's tax returns and their gross revenues they're making, that's all proprietary, heavily sensitive information. And I don't know where the auditors are going.
This office is public information.
Yeah, but so that means you got to advertise all your business to everybody in order to get the grant. Well, they won't apply, I wouldn't think.
No, I mean, I don't know how else
If
you.
wants to see the information, you have to provide it to them.
This is taxpayers' money.
Every other county I've talked to that's doing this is doing it the same way because nobody knows any other way to prove how they actually had a loss.
Well, I think DSS takes tax returns in, don't they?
Yes, you have
Maybe,
to.
maybe you could follow the procedures they do.
You have to.
But it's not that we can't do it, it's just that it's very sensitive information, and there could be some special rules about
Yeah.
that, especially if it leaks out and somebody sees it's not supposed to. Why is there a limitation of 50 employees on the business? Is that based on some guidance? Or?
No, it's not based on any guidance. We're just trying to come up with a way to. We aren't sure what dollar amount you want to approve for grants. Most of our businesses within Stokes County have less than 50 employees. Just trying to set some sort of limitations on being able to spread the money a little further. If we get into some of the larger businesses, we could quickly be out of money with a few of them, whereas we can help a larger pool of the smaller
Yeah, that's
businesses.
a good plan. You might just want to stay flexible on that, depending on
Yeah.
what response you get. It has to be when you say they have to be in Stokes County, does that mean their headquarters have to be here, or they can have offices and employees here? Does that count if their headquarters is somewhere else?
Our thought process was that the business should be located in Stokes County. I mean, it should be just Stokes County business, and even if it's a franchise, if it's a small, not a big franchise, but like say, the Domino's in Walnut Cove is owned by somebody that lives in Stokes County that franchises that business, they've lost business. That's a Stokes County kind of based business. That as far as, the headquarters of it, I mean, if they live outside the county and their business is here, that's still acceptable with that.
Okay. Well, I mean, if you want to make them be Stokes County residents, I don't see any problem with that.
Okay.
It might make it cleaner. It just needs to be well defined. So if my headquarters is one county and I got 50 people working here, I might
Right.
probably get a little help here, but whatever.
Yeah.
Has Ty expressed any legal, in the past, all the grants had to be competitive. Anything we gave out had to be competitive, RFPs, and I've never seen just giving grant money out without some kind of
Well,
competition, but maybe that just is not warranted. But all the statutes are written that we've dealt with before where you had to do it competitively.
right.
But maybe this statute trumps those.
Well, with the
Okay,
process
yeah.
here has, because it has to be done before December 30th. So, and the timeline, if we do it this way and we advertise it for 10 days, tape applications for 10 days or 2 weeks, you're still looking at almost October before anybody ever even receives any funding at all. If
Yeah.
we do much more process to it as far as getting with some of the regular regulations that you would normally do, we'd never get them out before the timeline is up. And once everything from here tonight, once we've talked to Ty about a lot of this information, but once I get all the feedback from here, I want to send him everything and the notes from it and kind of see where we stand on it.
Okay, that's really all I have. I would just suggest maybe you and Julia call the auditors or somebody like that and just say, you know, give me the pitfalls that we may get into that could get us personally in trouble and tell us how to avoid them. Because they're going to be auditing what you do.
They may not have gotten that much guidance either yet.
That's the problem, is all this is unfolding so fast that nobody is getting a lot of guidance, and it
Yeah.
changes every day. There's something they add or change or take away or,
They may could tell you some standard practices to be careful about or something.
yeah. Yeah.
I'd try to do everything to prove that I did everything I possibly could not to make a mistake, just in case I did.
Yeah.
If you do, it won't be so bad. You can at least show you tried not to, but.
Yeah, and we're, with the county, what we've already been using so far, we've been keeping a literal just book of things that we're spending things on, documenting it. There's a couple categories you have to document it in that you're spending on, and when we report it that way, as far as if we're spending it on protective things in buildings, or, you know, specialized cleaning devices that are, you know, killing certain germs, using them for the jail, and using them for places like that. So that's, and we have to use it for payroll expenses. If they're out and they're required to be quarantined, you have to pay them a certain percentage while they're out if they're, you know, job related.
Yeah, okay.
So,
That's all I have.
Mr. Walker?
Thank you, sir. Shannon and Jake, excuse me, sounds like y'all put a pretty good bit of work into bringing us up to where we are with this process. Few questions. Not as technical as Commissioner Morris's, I don't believe. His county manager pass comes out sometimes. But, what have we done or doing to get the word out about these funds? I don't want somebody to come up and say after the fact, well, gee, I didn't know about that.
well,
So what kind of good faith effort, or what are some of the things we're doing to be sure that the word gets out sufficiently?
we won't put anything out until you approve everything as far as how we're going to do it. So we'll need to know, once we get some of these questions answered, like Commissioner Morris has brought up and like you're talking about, we would come back to the board for some final wording on some things, and then we would advertise it. We would run a notice in the paper, we would put it on the website, we would put it on, you know, the tourism page, Facebook, and then I've spoken with Will and Tori in Economic Development about literally just taking some flyers door to door to the businesses and nonprofits and things and just dispersing that, because that's why we would like to do an advertisement period before we even start taking applications, to get the word out so they understand there's going to be an application process and start thinking about that. But until we know exactly the amount of money we want to allot towards it, the amount of money we want to, you probably want to set a cap, like you're eligible for a grant up to a certain amount, and then base that on how many applications you get. And you could always look at it and reevaluate if you didn't get enough to use the whole amount, might give somebody more that needs more. So those, once I get those kind of questions answered and know exactly, then we would just hit the ground running and get it out there to everybody to know. If, you know, we could pretty much, within 10 days, if we did a 10-day advertisement period, putting it in the paper, the website, the tourism Facebook, and sending Will and Tori out with to canvass the county and just hand out flyers about it and get them to know what's going on. And I've already had some requests from nonprofits that have sent me information already.
It's not a lot of time. It's just very, very, it's going to be very difficult to make sure that we have picked up everyone out there that is in concern of utilizing these funds. So I think I'm hoping they will extend it, the deadline on into 2021. But we do need the board to review these application processes, and we need the board to go ahead and say, is the 10-day advertisement period okay, and the application will be accepted from such date to this date. And the grant review team will meet on this date to start reviewing these applications. And applications will be done and date and stamped upon receipts, and everything will be postmarked. And the grants review team shall access the applications to ensure the criteria of the grant programs are met. And then payment shall be distributed out, beginning on what date? These dates, these time dates and these time ranges need to be approved by the board.
Busy September and October.
Yeah.
It's just too many irons in the fire right now. So-
There are, and we can, after tonight, we can get with the auditors like we were talking about for Julia and just ask some questions and see if they'll give any kind of input on it. I can call my friend at the OSBM and ask her, just if she can give any specific guidance on if, there's going to be any way to track the recipient spending of the grant, if they receive something, a small business or a nonprofit, or if that's strictly on us to do in some way, and answer those questions. And then at the next meeting, we could hopefully approve the interlocal agreement and get those things approved and get all the, we'll let Ty look over everything again and make the changes and get all that wording approved of and approve it the next time so we can get things out. So, because I don't want to rush the process tonight and then leave something out or look over some, overlook something that's going to be a big deal a year from now.
So we'd really appreciate this board talking with us over the next 2 weeks. That when we come back on the 24th, is that that we are all together on the same page of what we're doing on time frame, timelines, and amounts of monies. And just remember that these monies can be spread in many different ways. Your hospital appears to need a whole lot.
Yeah.
And they could probably receive a lot of money on upgrading equipment that they have.
We spoke with Pam on the purchase. They had to purchase or upgrade or something with a ventilator they had there, and that cost them about $47,000 that they really didn't need to be spending on that at that time. So,
One ventilator, I think we got 2
yeah.
at least. So,
It seems like y'all got a plan together, so that's good for me.
Does anybody have a figure in mind that they think they would like to put towards something? Like once we get all the questions answered about a grant program, just a figure they would like to put out there as far as the amount to put into a fund to use for small business and we have a lot of small businesses in Stokes County and quite a few nonprofits.
You have any idea about how much your county expenses is adding up to right now and what they spend on COVID?
It's not as much as you would think. So it's like, so we're going to give out we do the 469 to the municipalities, leaving us like 1.4. We haven't even, I would say, I know you've been working on payroll this week, but we're way under 200,000 that we've even, I don't think that we will, barring a major disaster, I hate to say that these days, but I don't think we would ever spend the remainder of that money just on payroll expenses, PPE things. A lot of those, PPEs from the emergency management's been getting in, free masks and gloves and lots of things like that they've been providing. But as far as putting up protective barriers, things like that, we won't spend that amount of money. So that's why we want to try to utilize and do as much as we can to help the small businesses, nonprofits, and the municipalities with their parts.
I have some more questions too, Mr. Chairman.
I was going to say, figure mine, like after you take out the municipalities and what the part that the county's got, I'd like to see at least about 75% of it set aside for the businesses and organizations. And of course, it's up to you guys as well. But
Isn't our objective to spend all of it that we don't
Yes.
spend within the county?
I would see part of what we're talking about this evening as work that our committee would be addressing as well. Because it's up to them to do the actual allocation recommendations, it appears. But I'm interested in who can qualify or apply and have a chance of being funded. Jake, Shannon, any information you can offer regarding that?
On who can apply?
Yeah.
everybody.
Let me kind of go back and put a few more pieces together. Y'all in your discussion have addressed losses pretty consistently. with the exception of the hospital, I think, and you were talking about an upgrade, adding another ventilator, which really is not a loss. That's funding something with potential, future potential needs. And I'm wondering, for example, I know of a nonprofit that deals with a drug issue, and this COVID-19 has really escalated the need for their services because drugs are more rampant now than they've probably ever been. So could they apply on the basis of we have something we need to do, our organization needs to do to address this need in our county to help offset some of the effect of what's being caused by the virus?
If, that anybody can apply, but the basis for that would be if they could prove that it has increased their cost or increased, their spending of whatever program you're speaking of. If it's costing them more money this year than last year because they're seeing more people or things like that, then yes, that would be considered an increase in services or something like that because of COVID-19. But there's got to be a way to prove that, to say that last year we were only seeing these number of people who were spending this number of money on this program, and this year during this time period we've increased it by 50% and we're spending this much more money. So there would have to be a way to document that. It's just like Commissioner Morris is saying, if not, we don't have anything to stand on to say that we proved that they actually have a loss or have a reason for receiving that funding.
Is that a firm boundary there, or is there any flexibility as far as how these funds could be used?
It's not my boundary at all. I'm just trying to protect us from something in the future of setting some limitations and some checks and balances, or else, we just give away money and we don't have any kind of way to prove of why we're giving it away.
I've never seen such a knee-jerk reaction to address an issue as I'm seeing with some of these funds that are just kind of being thrown around. Here, take this money, take that money, take so much a week, do this, do that. I've never seen anything like this. It's almost like funny money in some instances. But there needs to be, I totally agree with Commissioner Morris and what you're saying, there needs to be some accountability. There needs to even be some checks and balances. Otherwise, too many loopholes are exposed. Anyway, I know Commissioner Langford doesn't like long meetings, so let me get on down my list. How are we going to check for duplication between what we're distributing, county is distributing, and the municipalities? What happens if somebody applies to municipality and applies to us as well for funding?
They won't be doing that. The municipalities will just strictly be doing their costs associated within their municipality, like things. City of King, for instance, has sent over some information saying that they're planning to use some of their funding for essential employees hazard pay, things like that within their system, which we can also do here. So that's things that they're going to spend it on, and outfitting their offices and doing things throughout the county like that. So we won't cross over with the grant.
So if there's a business in King, Water Cove, wherever, that wants to apply, they don't need to apply to the municipality, they just apply directly to the county.
Keep it, no confusion, that way it comes to one place.
I think you've already addressed this, how long the recipients have to spend these funds.
We have to spend the funding by December 30th, and it has to be gone, awarded, and out. There is no timeline set for them as of right now through any of this information that's come in. We have to physically give them the money before then. If the municipalities don't spend, that funding works different. That's kind of like a sub-award to them. If they can't spend all their funding, they have to send it back just like we do. But as far as the businesses with the grants, nonprofits, if we're giving out that money is theirs. There's no limit yet as far as a timeline for them unless they set that later, and that could happen.
So does the municipality send excess funds back to us, or?
Send it back to the state.
Really?
Yes.
It's not good.
Yeah. If it's not spent. Now, if they say they get the money in October and they see that they're never going to be able to spend that amount by December 30th, they can award that, take that money back to here, that we could distribute out in another way if we can see fit to spend it.
I was about to say, can we set a date for that ourselves to
That's, you
say?
can do that in that interlocal agreement. You can say by November 30th or whatever, if the funds aren't spent, they'll be returned to the county, and then that way you can use them for other funding. You could even open up a second round of your grant funding or something, since you've already done the process once, and distribute the money out that way. Those are, I mean,
You may want to do an acceptance letter. It's something in here that they have to accept. Yes, we will accept these funds, or no, we won't. Because
Very
we
good.
met with the municipalities, when this first started several months ago. We had the town managers to come in and we discussed funding of this stuff once it got here. And, you know, Danbury even said, we don't want to have nothing to do with it.
That's fine.
And,
That's certainly their option.
yeah, that's certainly their option, so that's be something that, if you had it in there where they would accept or reject the amount allotted.
I never thought that I'd be participating in a discussion exactly like this on how best to, what's our best way to give away money.
no,
And
I
it's,
know.
and it's just all over it's all over the page. It's no guidance to it. And it just makes it very difficult. It makes us want to come up with some types of criteria and guidance on what people are asking for so we can track it. If we got to report what we're doing every month, then we've got to be able to establish some kind of criteria of why you're asking for it.
Right. Well, I think you're right in exercising an abundance of caution as far as how these funds are distributed. Because the trap door, and I think Commissioner Morris pointed this out, is that we can be called to task later on. Well, why'd you do this? Why did you not have a better, a more accountable way of dealing with this? And I think we're really being very careful how we deal with this. And I think in the long run, that might be to our advantage.
Y'all look at this Stokes County Small Business Nonprofit application, because Shannon went out there and just studied what a lot of counties were doing, and a lot of municipalities were doing, and she built you a questionnaire for them to fill out an application on why they're requesting these funds, and she's done a lot of work on that. So it looks nice. So I think it's not really going in a lot of detail of gathering information that you would feel like it would be very personal or some HIPAA violation, but it does ask the question, and to where people are treated fairly, and every business gets it, even in nonprofits.
That's what I look for, is fairness and consistency. And
Good job.
as long as we adhere to following those precepts as guidelines, then it's easy to answer the question of, well, why'd I get this and,
Right.
or why'd they get this and I didn't?
Yes.
So as long as we're fair and consistent, completely above board, I think we're going down a good path.
Well, and you could put, say, $500,000 into a grant account, and you could set a limit on the application or in the guidelines and say that money's been set aside and you're going to give grants. You may receive a grant up to the amount of $2,500 or $5,000 or whichever. And then that way you have kind of a limitation set, because if you get an overwhelming amount of applications, it helps you to fund. Some people may have lost $1,000 and some may have lost $10,000. It just depends on the nature of their business or their nonprofit. But in order to be able to fund as many as we can, and we can always bring those back to you once we receive them and say, this amount of money is going to be spent or it's not. I mean, we may not even spend the whole $500,000 if we allotted that. Because if we used at least that much, by the time we do the 469 to the municipalities, and that takes us almost back to our original allotment of the 991, which is, it's a little less than that with those two.
Yeah, one way you could do that is you could just say that we're going to give a grant amount, and that will be determined after we see what applications we get.
Yeah, and
And that you can put it off a little bit until you had a little better data.
and that would be, I would love to do that, because that way, like we said, you're going to have some with totally different needs than others.
Yeah, and then one other thing you might do, Shannon, is add one more certification at the end of the application that says something to the effect of that I certify that I will keep records of how the money was spent and be prepared to demonstrate how I've spent the money should a request come from the state, local, or federal government to do so.
That's a good idea, and that might help us to cover that.
Not make it real specific, just say, use some method to track and
Right.
prove how you spent the
I like that. That way there's an area for them to,
in case they get audited later. Not saying they will, but they might. So
Right.
they need to be prepared if they do.
that's a good idea to add.
Okay.
Add something at the end where I have these boxes for them to certify their application, that they certify that they would be willing and able to present records proving how they spent this funding. If they were ever audited, things like that, so that we have that on file too, to say, we said you have to do that if you have to.
Yeah.
That's
And
a-
to
that's a
get the
good-
money, they'll have to do that.
Yeah, that's a good point too. So I'm gonna take what we talked about and add a few things and make some changes, send everything to Ty, and then, if anybody thinks of anything else during this period, email or call me, and then I'll have it back on next time, if that's okay, with the changes. Hopefully we can get it approved.
I would,
then, so we
yeah,
can
I would
send it out.
suggest that you guys bring everything you need us to approve for this to the next meeting, and we do it all at that meeting.
Right, which is
So we don't
why,
slow this schedule up any
yeah,
further.
which is why I hated to overwhelm with this big bunch of stuff, but I didn't know how else to do it and get it out to you for you to look at, so we can get it all approved next time.
We have plenty of time, 2 more weeks to look at it.
Yeah, and Lorraine, read over that interlocal agreement, and we'll, make any changes to that need to be made. The one thing I would like to ask the board for tonight, if we can get a consensus on, is, back when they changed the, Public Works Director, Mark came and saw you guys and talked about waiving the fees for the water and sewer. Now the state has done away with that, except for larger companies, like some of the for-profit energy companies like Duke and another one. And that stopped now, and they're actually charging fees again. Mark would like to go ahead and resume his fee schedule too. He did state that the majority of his late fees were well before the COVID started, so that he's now is just adding to those, just day after day. So he'd like to go ahead and follow the state guidelines and go back to charging the fees and the disconnects so he can get those accounts caught up. If the board is okay with him doing that. We did that in the tax office for a while. We waived the convenience fees on the credit cards for a period of time, but now we're back to charging those. If we didn't charge those in August, it would be terrible. So we'd be losing a lot of money and we can't get that back. So, he'd just like permission to move forward with going back to his normal process for that. And he works with everybody. He doesn't cut anybody's water off unnecessarily. He just did note that he had a lot of people that were already behind way before this ever began. So,
One more thing, if I may, please. Suppose we approve a grant for 20,000, business, nonprofit, doesn't matter. And they spend 15,000, and they say, wait a minute, we couldn't use all we thought we were going to use. What happens to the 5,000?
they can certainly give it back, but that would be up to them to do if they wanted to do that. And you want to add that in there somewhere if you want them to give back any. I don't think you're going to see a lot of that, of unused funds, especially if the grant's awarded based on their losses. You're talking about just letting them take money they've lost and pay their bills, pay things they need to pay, because people are struggling a little bit with that, especially in some of your small businesses that were forced to close down.
Still have some work to do.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Shannon, Jake.
As far as the business, has there been any guidance on that, like they have to file that as income on their tax, or is this gonna be
No.
like a forgiven loan? or-
And there's been absolutely nothing except for that you can give a sub-award or a grant to a small business or a nonprofit. Other than that, not. I would naturally assume they would have to claim it as a income on their taxes. I've never seen money you receive from anything you don't have to claim. So I'm sure they have. I'm
These
sure
are
they would have
strange
to.
times.
Yeah, I'm sure they would have to file it, but that's not been given out there.
Well, actually, possibly not, Shannon, because in many cases, this is indemnifying a business or nonprofit for losses. And so that money, I don't think, would be taxed on that basis.
I would not want to
I'm not an accountant, but
either, and I wouldn't want to say.
We'll find out January 1st.
Yeah, I think kind of like what Commissioner Morris is saying, they're going to come up, they'll have no guidance, and all of a sudden we'll have a million different rules when it's time for somebody to start looking into more of how they're just doing things so fast. And
May put something in to assure the businesses that we already take in tax returns and things for other purposes, and we'll use those same guidelines to protect their information.
Oh, absolutely, yeah,
Whatever Stacy and those guys do with however they do it, maybe.
yeah, yeah.
Are you kind of wanting a number tonight to go to the
Well,
county, or just something to think about?
I don't have to, I kind of wanted to, for us to be able to use these funds and give them out to the municipalities or do grant funding, Julia will have to switch a budget amendment over, because she went ahead and put this newest allotment into the general account she set up for the first CARES Act. But there's not going to be any money that's going to be given out anytime before then anyway, so we'll have time after the next meeting to do a budget amendment and do it. So I was just trying to get a,
At the next meeting.
well, no, if we don't have the numbers for the next meeting, she wouldn't be able to do one until the next meeting. But I'm just saying, if we come up with everything and approve it, by the time we do the advertisement periods, the interlocal agreement, and get those signed by everybody, do all those things, it's going to be a couple weeks after the next meeting before any of the money ever even leaves the account. So that would give time for her to do a budget amendment in September.
Okay. Well, that's really pushing it.
Yeah, we're trying to make sure we don't do anything or wrong. I don't know how else to do it without
I agree with you. I agree wholeheartedly.
getting it out there.
I heard Commissioner Moore say he was fine with Mark going back charging the fees. Commissioner Walker and Commissioner Langford, y'all fine with that as well?
Let me think about that just a few seconds. To be sure that I'm fitting the pieces together the way they need to. So back at some point, we stopped charging fees, late fees, that type of thing. That was at the beginning of the COVID, whatever. And at that time, he had a pretty substantial number of people not up to date with their payments.
Right.
So he wants to start resuming all late fees. So what about any late fees up to this time? If he resumes them, does everybody start with a clean slate?
No.
How do we determine what they owe?
There was just no disconnection of anything.
Right.
No fees were altered in any way. There was only just deferred. So that fee was still there.
Right.
So they're gonna pick up from that cutoff time for what they owed then? Okay.
Yeah. If they owed a dollar when this started, and it's now $5, then it's $5 they've got to pay. It just allowed the folks to take a little time to try to get through this difficult situation that they may have been placed under. I think a lot of it is allowed them to not pay things that should have been paid.
Well, that's,
That's
We
good.
got to January 3rd, right? We got to January 3rd to pay them.
January the 3rd.
that's tax stuff, right? You're talking about tax. We're talking about like utilities,
Yeah.
with public works.
Water, sewer.
Water and
Okay,
sewer.
I got you.
Yeah.
In Mark's absence, I have a question for manager. Jake, what's your recommendation, please?
My recommendation is we move forward with normal activities. You know, the state's already done stopped. We're not doing anything in the tax office. I don't think we need to do anything different with the other departments. I think all departments need to be the same.
Okay.
I think just move forward with them working with folks on getting their bills paid.
Mr. Chairman, I'm on board.
Like I said, he works with everybody. He's not gonna unnecessarily
Right.
disconnect someone's service.
Not allowed to evict them or turn it off it now, are you? Didn't the law still say you
Yeah,
can't do
there's still
that?
some stipulations in there about that, so he's
I'm
just,
saying something about that too, I think.
so,
All right,
Executive orders.
move on to item
Nothing
E.
needs to be taken care of.
no, not tonight, so as long as we have consensus about the utilities, and then everything else, we're gonna change some things, get with Ty, and we'll bring it back, so.
This is a lot of information.
So,
I
it
just
is.
gotta make sure
Yeah.
everything's good.
All right, move on to item E, the demolition of the old prison site. Commissioners, I'd asked our county manager, Jake Oakley, to get some numbers for me on this. With the stuff that's coming to the Meadows area, it was something I really want to look at in the budget this year. As a prime site for any kind of business coming in that location. And I believe you seen a rat about the size of a groundhog run across the road in one of those buildings that day. Am I correct on that?
It looked like a rat to me.
I hope it wasn't a rat. Chances are it's pretty good that it was, but, also I've always expressed concern about the, liability over in the area. I think there's been some evidence of, some people hanging out in the abandoned houses in the whole area. Probably doing drugs, I hope not, but I think that's what it's kind of showing that they're doing. And, Mr. Manager, if you would, on the.
I don't think you need something like this around your college that you got there with kids going there. With your new animal shelter adoption site just have been built and opened up. There's no house on the other side of it that needs to be taken down. I think that if we're gonna, if we're gonna start talking about any condemnations, anything through planning and zoning, and we need to make sure ours is clean well, so. I would recommend, if there's any way possible, that you look forward to cleaning this up so our economic developer can start marketing this piece of property without someone looking to see what's on it. So, a lot of good things happening to the Meadows area, isn't it, Will? And I think that here's an opportunity that I think that this, if there's any way possible we move forward with cleaning this up and marketing this area also. Because I think with the water, when the water gets done, things are going to come to matter. It's going to come to matter. It's already coming. They're already coming. They're not going to stop. I think it's a good location and people's going to come.
Can we use the COVID money from the state?
No. That's one of those really good examples of there's no way you could ever tie that to any kind of COVID-related expense.
Okay.
Yeah. I wish we could, but we cannot.
I think COVID caused it.
Yeah, I do too.
But anyway, it would be nice.
If that rat might have had COVID for all we know.
That's right, yeah.
But I don't know. It's just something that you maybe want to consider cleaning up.
I have a couple of comments on that.
Hey, Mr. Moore.
One thing I talked about during my campaign and have mentioned, I think since then, I'd like to see a strategic plan for how we're going to use that property before we do anything to it. I'm all for cleaning it up, but with the uncertainty of the budget, I wouldn't be comfortable spending that money right now, I don't think, till we at least get to the end of the year and see what really happens with funding and so forth. But I like to see a well-researched strategic plan that looks at, gives us different options about what may happen there, how we could do that. Because now it's kind of sitting there just waiting to see what happens. Like the last thing that happened is they decided they want to build an animal shelter there, and I'd rather, instead of just waiting to see what happens, have a plan that really looks at how we could best use that and give the best value to the citizens. And that, you know, you could, and part of that plan could be that whoever puts a project in there, we make them clean it up instead of us paying for it. You know, just at least look at some options before we spend the money on it. But I am in favor of cleaning it up. Definitely, I don't think those buildings, any of them, including that jail, will be any use for anything, and they probably have asbestos in them too.
That was, Perry estimated that when he looked at it for the abatement of that was going to cost a good amount of money for the cleanup of it.
Yeah, what is the cost of doing it? Y'all got an update estimate for what it would
Rob
cost?
Delahunt got one from an individual, that company, and they gave us a bid of about $120,000 to do the demolition of removing everything there. They wouldn't come in and doing any kind of grading work.
Did that have anything to do with asbestos, or did it include asbestos?
It took care of everything.
Okay.
Now, Perry Peterson's, his cost had a lot of site preparation into it and getting it ready for whatever we were talking about at that time. Because he was doing the wellness center, but this 120,000 just done away with everything, asbestos and everything properly disposed of.
And I can tell you, I agree with what you said right there, but as a business owner, if I was coming to the area, even if it wasn't graded, but if it was cleaned up, it would make it more appealing to me to want to buy it, and I'd take and spend the money to do the grading and stuff on it.
Yeah, that's a possible option too, The strategic plan, could cover everything with it. There may be, start researching it, there may be some things you could do we hadn't even thought of. Instead of just somebody coming in and flopping something down, I mean, I don't know what's out there without doing the research to see how, I guess, even if we hired somebody to do it, to say, here's what we want you to do, to give us a strategic plan that says, here is the way this money could be, this land in this location could be the best value to the taxpayer.
Ask Commissioner Morris a question.
Yes, sir.
What part of the strategic plan would not benefit from having that property cleaned up? I don't see the connection between a
Well, strategic plan could decide who cleans it up and who pays for it, and if somebody else will pay for it instead of us, I would be much happier.
Well, the chances of getting somebody, I think Chairman Nicholson addressed this, the chances of getting somebody to be interested in that property would probably be much greater if it's a blight on the community.
Depends how bad they want it.
Would we let a business have an area like that and not try to get them to clean it up? So why does the county why do we set ourselves aside and allow something like that to be in a community? They put up with it long enough. It needs to be dealt with.
Well, it's been there a long time, and I don't know why when we're in the middle of a COVID thing where we don't even know what our revenues are going to be for the end of the year, why we would decide to do it now.
We're just waiting more virus. They're throwing virus money around. We might have more than we know what to do with.
I just think somebody with some expertise should look at it and advise us on it so we do the smartest thing for the
Well,
taxpayer.
somebody with some expertise, Commissioner Morris, has already looked at it, and they said for $120,000 we can remedy this problem. And it said during some budget meeting a while back, we were looking at it. That was for the Wellness Center, which would have been a very nice asset for that community and something really nice instead of what's there now, and really served the citizens in that part of our county very well. But I don't get the connection between not cleaning it up and a strategic plan.
It costs money.
Well,
And we have uncertainty with our money this year more than any year we've had since I've been dealing with local government.
Well, the whole saying is we have to invest money to make money.
Yeah, we do, but you got to have it to invest it, right?
Well,
I think you're putting water in there. This is a perfect time to jump on this problem. But, for instance, we just put a $300,000 match against $300,000 from ARC in about 30 seconds the other day. Mm-hmm. We've got companies out looking that may offer us matches for internet, which is way more important than cleaning up the prison camp. And so I don't want to spend all our money up on this, and whenever we have a chance to match and get some internet and get these kids educated long distances, which looks like what we're going to have to do, that we're not ready to react and to meet to something that's a much more high priority than this. If this was a high priority, it wouldn't have sat there this long.
it shouldn't have sat there that long.
But now that we got water and sewer coming, it becomes a higher priority. I agree with you 100%.
Would you want to live beside it?
Bother me.
Bother most people.
Seeing rats that big, it bother me.
Give me something to shoot at.
As far as internet, we spent $10 million. How does $10 million compare to $120,000?
I'm ready to get the rest of the county hooked up with wireless and match that money if we need to. And if we don't have it, then that to me would be a injustice to the students and the folks that need the internet. So I'm just saying, it's a priority thing. It's something I would say, do it in the next budget is what I would do, and have some information to make a good decision on by some experts.
Well, to settle the issue, why don't we put this on the action agenda for next meeting and decide how the other 4 board members see it?
Sounds good.
That's fine, man.
I agree.
Okay. All right. Is everybody good with that? We'll move on. Item F, request to abandon a portion of Snyder Road. Mr. Oakley?
Chairman, this is a request that's come in from the landowners out at Snyder Road. It's at the very end. Also took this request down to the mapping department looked into it. They had left one signature on it, and then you can see where I sent it back, and they fixed that part as far as the marital problems that was there with that piece of land and making sure everybody was signed. But all that's been taken care of, so I don't think no problem with us abandoning the right of way. That's what you do in states already, abandon the maintenance on it. You're going to abandon a certain portion of the right of way. And that portion you can see on your maps, what is it, about 40 foot? And they're building a new turnaround in there, the state is. And like I said, I don't see no problem with the county moving forward with that abandonment. You also have a letter here from the tax office stating the same.
Looks like we're talking about 500 feet or so, not a very large portion.
Yeah,
And
that's,
there's been anyone, you said you cleared up one concern. Has there been anyone who did not want this done?
no, it's only on one individual's property.
Okay, cool. Good.
That's why we always turn it over to the mapping department to make sure they look and see that this is not affecting anyone else.
And I'm on board for action for next meeting.
Do you need it before then?
No, it's not needed.
No.
It's not needed.
Okay.
Any more questions, comments on that one?
I'm good.
Does anybody need a break?
Action the next meeting.
Does anybody need a break?
No, we're about through, aren't we?
I hope we're about through. If we ain't, I do.
Okay, we'll try to push through this and that. All right, item G, the solar farm. Commissioner Morris, you want to take this one?
Yeah, I'll just speak on it real quick. The at our last meeting or some meeting, planning meeting we had, we asked the planning board to look at the solar farm moratorium, and I think they discussed it at their last meeting. And I think, you can correct me if I'm wrong from what David told us, they said they would like to do a moratorium until we got some policy put in place. They said they were going to do some, I think, some additional meetings over the next 2 or 3 months to look at this and maybe give us more specific recommendations. I think they discussed limiting the certain percentage of the county, but they're going to discuss all that whenever they get together. And they'll make a formal recommendation for us on what policy changes we need to do for the solar farms in the county. So I guess what we need to do is take this resolution and word it somehow where it either put so many months on it or put until the policy's developed, or however the board wants to do that, maybe by the next meeting.
Well, I thought we was waiting on the planning board to make a recommendation now.
We are, but they're going to be several months doing it, and so I think they had recommended we do a moratorium until they came back with their recommendation.
That buys them a little time to work
Give
on the
them some time
regulations.
to work on it.
Whereas they keep coming forward with the request for them, it gives the planning board a little time to work on regulations without them keep popping up while you're doing that.
Action for next meeting?
I mean, not necessarily. This is just a draft, so the board can talk about what they want to do. If they want to do a 1 year, if they want to do a certain land percentage, or whichever, they can talk about however they want to do it, or just like you just said, a timeline of a year or until the planning board comes up with a recommendation.
I would just put in there till they come up with a recommendation.
Sure.
That's what they said they wanted to do.
I'm on board.
I am.
The only question I have is, when does those tax credits end for this? Does anybody know that? Because that's one thing that's not been answered for me yet.
I heard Mark or someone say they're ending fairly soon,
Yeah.
but I don't know the exact date. But even if they end or don't end within a reasonable time, the moratorium still could serve a useful purpose.
Okay.
I support solar farms, but I don't just want to do a knee-jerk type thing with them.
Right.
So, if we got 2 weeks to finalize our thoughts on it, if it's on action for next meeting.
That's fine.
And if we're not ready to take action
Plus Ronnie will be
then,
here then too, hopefully.
yeah, if we're not ready to take action next meeting, we can defer it to a future meeting.
Is there anything specific the board wants to change in the wording of here other than as far as the resolution part of, until the planning board can make a recommendation on regulations.
I would change one of, or add a bullet or modify one to say that that's what we're gonna do until the,
Anything else anybody just wants to note they want to change or take out, or any, as far as how it's up here, a resolution establishing a 3-year moratorium, you want to change that wording, and also change, put in a number for the approval of large solar farms.
I don't know, what
just
did we discuss
larger.
about the size of them? I don't remember, was it 50 acres or 30?
Nobody ever really gave a definitive answer on what they'd like to regulate as far as like the sizes, because what you've approved so far have been large-scale solar farms. So I don't know if anybody has a number they have in mind of what they'd like to put this moratorium on, or just on all, if you want to do it on
So when they just
solar.
did King, how big was it? Remember, do you know, Jim?
Big, it's like 30 acres.
It was nowhere near the size of the ones in the
Yeah,
county.
I'm just talking about what the.
25, 30 acres maybe.
We could say 50-acre limitation or 30.
I'm not particularly comfortable with a 3-year moratorium. I like Commissioner Morris's recommendation, or Commissioner Lankford, I thought I saw him nodding his head. 1 year until, or.
We can just take that wording out and just say resolution establishing a moratorium on approval of large solar farms of 50 acres or larger. And then down at the bottom, put in upon approval until the planning board makes a recommendation on regulations for solar farms. We can
And is
really
adopted
take
by the
that.
Board of Commissioners.
Right, and take
Exactly,
out the
yeah.
3-year part, just add that. We could change it to that and bring it back to action next time.
Also, I think once they give us a policy and we approve it, then we need to start dealing with them,
Yeah,
not just hold them off. Just
right,
either approve them or disapprove them based
Yeah.
on that policy.
yeah.
You have all 3 months, you'll know what's waiting in line right now, so.
Right.
All right.
So that for action next time with those changes we talked about. Right.
Yeah. Yes. All right, move on to item H, the Hospital Operations Board Appointment Request. Request review for Greg Collins, Olivia Shelton, Debbie Baden, Kimberly Walker, and Dwayne Young. Applications were included for our review.
Let me comment on that a couple minutes.
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Morris.
Yeah, well, our board met, the 4 elected officials, Jack, Wendy, Elwood, and myself, and we were okay with these 5 these are the only 5 that applied, and we need 5 to fill out the board. So they were satisfied with the qualifications and these people to serve on the board. Our requirement was either to have business or medical expertise, and then also a geographic location to try to spread over the county. One thing that this 5 doesn't do is really, it doesn't have a person per se from Pine Hall or Sandy Ridge. So it doesn't have, it can be either or, a combination of those things. But these 5 are perfectly satisfactory with us. We'd also talked about if we can do it, and we need to ask Ty this, if maybe we could put a couple alternates in to fill in case one of these folks can't attend. And if we were doing that specifically, look for somebody from Pine Hall, Sandy Ridge, I would say, or any other, you guys have our board together has the final say-so on these 5 or whoever we put in. So, got a couple of weeks to think about these. So we nominate these 5, but then you can also nominate others at the next meeting if you want to. So,
All right, with that, I'll open the floor for nominations.
since I'm that chairman of that board, I probably shouldn't do the nominations. I mean, I've already recommended them with our other 3. So,
Okay.
So if anyone else would be interested, they still have between now and next meeting to let it be known.
definitely, yeah.
That's been a well-advertised committee, like, as far as applications to be received, so.
So we're going for 9 folks.
These 5 will fill it out and make 9 total. But also, Shannon, if you would check with Ty maybe and see if we can do alternates. I think our bylaws would let us do that without any problem, but alternates too.
Have you already created bylaws? Have you already created bylaws?
You all did.
Yeah. Yeah, we approved them, remember?
At the last meeting that you have with LifeBright as the board of trustees for the hospital, you amended the bylaws to add some different things and do the operations committee, remember?
But how does the Board of Trustees interact with this board or committee? When this committee makes a recommendation, do they make it to the Board of Trustees or to this board?
Right, and so, and Ty says that you can do this part as this board, as far as the, as far as nominations, applications, things like that. You're perfectly fine to do your normal procedure and approve those. As far as if you were making a recommendation of something major with the hospital, I'm
We'd
not
have-
a
yeah,
lawyer,
we'd have
you
to-
do it as the, you do have a meeting as the board of trustees.
Yeah, we asked that specific question, should we may have a Board of Trustees meeting to do this, and he said, no, we could nominate the people here, and then,
So this is a committee established by the Board of Commissioners.
or as the Board of Trustees, when you approve the bylaws. But remember, we redid the bylaws,
I remember,
created a
Some of them.
9-person committee.
right, but I don't remember doing away with the Board of Trustees, which I
We
did.
didn't, we didn't.
I didn't think we did. And you chaired that also.
Yeah, I chair that, but
Um,
that board's still gonna meet whenever we have, issues related to the hospital, but as far as nominations for this particular hospital committee, I said we could go ahead and do it
Sure.
here.
I don't-
And you are still.
Plus, you're a signature to the lease as well as the trustee board is, even though you're the same people.
And the elected
It
commissioners.
has 3 signees on it, 3 signatures.
And I think the way your bylaws read too is the elected commissioners are the trustees. So when we have a change in this next election, those elected commissioners are automatically
Yeah, we
sit in the
changed
board of
that in the
trustees
bylaws too.
members.
I know you're gonna have 2 people on that committee pushing hard for more medical services in the King area. They still don't appreciate the ER not being there. They
That's
feel like
fine, that's why we put them up, I'll
something,
spread them
feel
all
like
over the
something
county.
was taken away from them that never should have been. But anyway, I'll move it, we close the nominations.
Discussion.
You make them? Did y'all, who made them?
Who made the motion?
I did, he seconded.
You're making a motion to close and somebody's making a second, but did anybody nominate the?
Did you nominate
Oh,
those?
That's five.
no, I'm sorry. I'm winding down, I can tell. Anyone like to nominate them? Rick, you seem pretty familiar with them.
Since I've already recommended them from the committee, being the committee chair, probably somebody else should
Okay.
nominate them.
It's Greg Collins, Olivia Shelton, Debbie Vaden, Kimberly Walker, and Dwayne Young are the applications being presented.
And I'm not related to the Kimberly Walker here, although I have a daughter, Kimberly Walker. She doesn't live on Dalton Road. But anyhow, I will nominate the list just read by our board clerk.
Right. Thank you.
Second?
Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And we'll move that to action for the next meeting. And I'll find out from Ty about alternates.
We'd have it maybe at least 2,
I'll ask him and
fill in
see.
when somebody's out.
Okay.
All right. Item I, the budget review date. Ms. Shannon?
So after talking to a couple of you, I've got some conflicts on, we had set up one date original, and then I think we determined that one commissioner would be out. So we went back and set another date in October to do the budget review, and then that doesn't work for somebody else. And after thinking about it a little bit and talking to Jake about it, I think it might be easier just to select a whole new date and make it just a budget review meeting. It might be a little ambitious to have a budget review as part of a regular meeting, because that could get pretty lengthy. So I've got a couple of dates that I've looked over in the November calendar that look like no conflicts here that I wanted you all to take a look at for Monday, November 16th, Tuesday the 17th, and Wednesday the 18th. I'm saying 1 or 3. Those are flexible times and dates, but if anybody could look at their calendars and see, and we could go ahead and get that on the schedule. And I'll confirm with Commissioner Mendenhall too on the date before I do any kind of advertising.
And these are before Thanksgiving by a pretty good
They are a
bit,
week,
so-
yeah, we're a week ahead.
And, is it before the election?
It's after.
After
It's after.
Yeah,
I mean, it's after, but you will still be the same sitting board. The board won't change until
December.
first Monday
First
in
meeting in
December.
December.
So it'll still be this board that'll do the budget review.
for first Monday. That far ahead, I have no problem.
I'm good with all 3. I prefer the Monday probably, but I can do all 3.
Okay. Does anybody have a conflict with the Monday? That date's good.
What is the date?
November the
16th of
16th.
November.
No, I'm good.
Yeah, Go ahead and set that for Monday the 16th, as long as
Okay.
Commissioner Mendenhall.
Do you prefer 1 or 3? Time?
I prefer 3.
3?
It's fine with me.
I will be.
We'll just do that as a special meeting, as a budget review, and that way we're only covering budget review items at that.
Ronnie has a conflict, just make it the other 2 days then.
Okay, okay, I'll check with him, I won't do it right now, but I'll give him a couple days. Okay. Thank you.
Moving to action agenda, item A, the Walnut Food Planning Board appointment request.
Motion to approve.
Okay.
We have to
Open the floor for any additional nominations.
move to close the nominations.
Get a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. And item B, Richard Brim's
Can you poll the board?
I'm sorry, I'll poll the board.
Hairston. Hairston.
Same.
Hairston.
Thank you.
Item B, Richard Brim's reappointment.
Motion to approve.
It's a 4-year appointment also.
4-year appointment.
That you're approving.
Move to approve for 4 years.
Okay. Any discussion?
I'll consider it.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, we're good.
As far as I can tell, he's doing a good job. He had a good teacher, didn't he, Jay?
Richard's doing a fine job.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So much. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned.